Welcome to the Daily Ethical Design event. Starting small, Nata Kostenko with UXify and Eindhoven. Really hope I pronounce it correctly. Bits about myself, what I do. I'm a service designer and design researcher at Scania. Again, don't know if you've heard of it before, but probably after today, you will start noticing buses and trucks on the streets which were produced by Scania, because this is how it happens when you plan to buy red cars and you see red cars everywhere. So Scania is a transportation company, and I'm a part of innovation office. So pretty much what I do, I am a part of a team, of design team, and also a larger team of research and development. And we work on creating disruptive innovations for the company. So something outside the regular kind of like core business. I'm also a design ethics enthusiast. So even though my master's thesis officially says daily ethical design, so the topic of today's conversation as well, I'm not like a schooled philosopher, and mostly I'm a practitioner, and these are some thoughts that I found useful for myself. And then maybe you'll find them useful for you as well. I don't like cucumbers. It's just like on a personal note. Don't know if anybody is here like that, but I find that personal relation sometimes helps. What I do like actually is that I just recently came across this book. It's actually a book of illustrations, which is kind of fun. I don't know, maybe I can show it. It's like just a person drawing. So yeah, some of my likes, some of my dislikes. And I'm a former digital nomad, so all of this working out of your backpack, remote job, like 50 countries and so on, that's my past. Now I'm more into ethical design, and before we go into how I see it and what it is for me, I'd like to ask you to move to the Miro board, and you already have, I guess, the link in the chat to write like on a post-it. If like you just add with Control N, or here like on the side, on like how do you feel about ethical design, what it is for you, like if all is clear, anything you find confusing, so that it also I can see like how to tailor our today's meeting, and of course for the team to see like what to add to the next meeting in August. Just maybe a couple of minutes. I will not put a timer on this, but I'll keep an eye on the time with this one. I love the nicknames. It's so much fun to check the nicknames.
I see a lot of people in the middle of the board, so maybe it will help to bring them all.
Yeah, trying. Yep. Yay. Like a party. I actually prefer Google Docs when they say like guest rhino, or like anonymous rhino, or anonymous, I don't know, giraffe. And like guest visionary sounds like, yeah, fun, but four people are still following me. 3. Interesting. Can I move around and drop someone? Okay, I'll start reading what we have here, and then feel free to finish your post-its. So good to talk about hard to practice. Yes, well, yeah, at least if you think about this, that's already good. Like I'd say not so many people think about in the first place. Complex to apply or design, that's an interesting one. We'll address it. And also it's interesting that in various contexts it's different. So I previously worked for an agency, like e-commerce email marketing agency. They had their own understanding of what is ethics. Then I had my own company. And of course, like, when you can pick the projects, it's a bit different than when you're given projects. And now working for a large enterprise, definitely like the organization feels different. So the other thing we have is like not only is the right thing to do, but also solves issues before they appear. That's good. That's a good starting point, actually. I think, yeah, pretty much that's the end result of today's meeting, I guess, for us. Understand, translate data for human. Yeah, data actually is there are a lot of ethical issues around data. I think it's one of the most popular issues that are addressed, luckily. In our hands to set the right base today. That's true. That's a good belief. I think that not everybody has this, and like the more you go theoretically into ethics, the less you kind of have this understanding that it's in your hands, but it is. And then only in the hands of designers, it's good. At least it's in the hands of designers. I think like by even joining the conversations and keep talking about this already helps, and thinking about this. Important for trust, yes. Design for trust is one of the trends, actually. Like if you check out this like Gartner's, or well, Bloomberg, pretty much any trend analysis, like future trends, you will see like trend and ethics, trend and trust are the things. Yeah. And then we have the making trustworthy connection. Yep, coming back to trust and design empathetically. Yes. I was watching recently a video of Ford Innovation Group, and they're like, yes, we are empathetic, but for some reason it sounded, yes, we are pathetic. So yes, let's vouch for being empathetic and not for being pathetic. Great. Let me come back then to the presentation after we capture the initial sentiment here. So I guess you should see the PDFs now. So in terms of the ethical design or ethics, there are so many terms, and I don't know how like deep you digged into the topic, but pretty much what helped me is even to gather the keywords that people use in order to describe this. There you could be like fair, just, responsible, something around diversity, equity, safe, belonging, sustainable, integrity, mindful, humane. And if you are into like learning more, searching more, googling more about this, you can do like, like design and diversity, or like safe design, or like design for belonging, or like, I don't know, entrepreneurship, like mindful entrepreneurship or something, depending on your position, right? Or what you do. Or fair tech, like tech is also a good part like to add. So you can add like tech or AI or design depending on where you are at, and just like to search for more. And not only on Google, like Slack groups are usually good resource of information, and LinkedIn as well. So even there are this hashtags on LinkedIn, just like to read on more and to immerse yourself. So what helps me to get into the mindset is that on LinkedIn, I subscribe like to people who are writing about ethical tech, ethical design, and it just keeps reminding me that yes, let's do this. For myself, I usually talk about ethical just because I originally come like from a country where I'm like schooled as, we were not told what is fair, what is just, but what is ethical. There were conversations, and also it's like philosophical term that goes back like 2500 years ago. So of course it popped up here and there. It's just easier to non-native speakers as well, to coordinate on this, in this regard. um, Conscious tech, yes, definitely, that's also a point. Whatever rocks your boat, but just usually people are talking about more or less the same things here. So yeah, that's great input. The definition that I take for myself, it's around this whatever businesses, products, services. It's usually for me around like fairness and respect towards everybody involved. And by everyone or everybody, just like Leonard Overkamp mentioned like the last time, I mean, of course, people, also us as designers, we are part of this design, but also like planet, society, and like all the other like stakeholders. And if you haven't come across them yet, Ethical Design Handbook is quite an interesting resource to explore. And they have an ethical design scorecard in there as well. So they have specific questions that you answer to see whether your organization, agency, company is ethical, and like to see kind of problem areas. What I found curious was my previous organization. We did it with several stakeholders, and then I would compare the answers and how they see it, and then how I see it, and how like design team understands like the state of ethics in the company. So yeah, if you're looking for the small steps, I guess assessment can be one of them. Um, However, again, like Senate Bowles, who wrote another book around this on future ethics, is a bit more scientific, I'd say, a bit more heavy in terms of the examples. And what he says, like the manual for ethics is oxymoron. So there is no way I can tell you, okay, do this, this, and that, and it will work. And if you have this understanding already, that's great, that you will have to solve ethical problems for yourself. But yeah, usually there is more than one answer, and we can check it out together today. So the plan is to think solo and together. If you feel like self-reflection, good. If you feel like sharing, great. We will walk through a couple of real life daily situations that I face in my work as a designer. And I'll share some thoughts on how to have better conversations like with peers and businesses around like what is ethics, how to approach it, and so on. Um, so almost every ethics related event starts with scary stories like, oh, Facebook tested negative sentiment and spiraled people into depression, or oh my God, like Google sold our data here and there. So let's try to break the pattern. Maybe you've heard of this ride-sharing app called Bolt. It's kind of like Uber, but it originated in Estonia, where I previously spent 2 years of my life, so near and dear to my heart. And I tried to take their example and see how these three ethical domains were realized in the app that they are designing, in the ride-sharing app. So these three domains are by Kate Joe. Again, if you haven't heard of her before, she's the product designer at Spotify, and she developed an ethical tech framework. So she says that autonomy, safety, and transparency are these three domains of ethics that are more tangible, that we can focus on when we're developing whatever it is we're developing. So when we talk about Bolt, how we can add this good to design, right? So autonomy is about you as a user can rate the driver. So you have this freedom, you give the freedom to the user to rate the driver 1 star or 2 stars. You're not saying, oh, sorry. You're not like in the US when, sorry, the tip that is below 25% is not a tip, is an offense. So yeah, this is an option, giving people choices and helping them be autonomous. In terms of safety, one of the features they introduced was actually from South Africa. So what they did this women only option. So if you don't feel safe of driving with a man, you can, for the same price, like same ride fare, call a taxi, which will be like with a woman. It might take a bit more time to arrive, but at least that's their way to tailor like to safety. I had a friend who commented on this actually, that if you have this women only option, maybe you're giving them thoughts of, is it safe to drive at all? And maybe they didn't have safety concerns before, but after they see this option, they might. So that's why you always do user research, right? That's why you always see like how your test participants perform. But yeah, this is an option on how to provide this safety feeling. And another one is transparency. So what they do is their FAQ. They provide like most relevant FAQ at the top, and they explain it like super clearly, super easily. So usually everybody is pissed. What is dynamic prices? Like why the hell the price is changing depending on the day, depending on the hour, and so on. So if in your design you can somehow like do this transparency thing, there's an option. Let me see. There is something in the chat. Yep, I will suggest the ethical writers designers on LinkedIn for sure. There are several people actually whom I follow. So coming back to Bolt, however, we're not sure like is the mission and the business model of the company ethical? Like when you're doing ride sharing, like is Uber ethical? Is Bolt ethical? How do they perform in other domains? Maybe they actually produce more CO2. Maybe they are not like working towards decreasing this. So only by assessing like this limited capabilities, we cannot say overall if the company is ethical. So this would require this like further thinking and exploration. So that's the best part of the ethics, that you always need to think. Another example, maybe you've heard of the guys, they're like, hey, there's an alternative to Gmail, and it's an email client. They care about the privacy, like they don't sell your data, they're self-funded, they communicate openly about what they do. And of course, it's a paid product. So for them not to sell your data, like you pay for their subscription. But the same company, they recently like published their policy that they decided not to be involved into any like social problems, not to state any positions about like issues in the country or in the world and so on. So as a company, they decided we only do our product and we don't care about the rest of the issues. We don't voice our positions. So how ethical is it? Again, up for us to understand, up for us to discuss. But yeah, it's just some of the points when you think, oh my God, this company made something really ethical, really cool, and they're the best. Maybe there are other domains to explore. And then there is the company called Wise. It's kind of like Revolut. Don't know, maybe you've heard of them before. They recently became the like Unicorn 10X. I don't know how it's like Binicorn or something. So what they decided to do, they decided to give a share in their company to the first 2,000 like active customers, like on a list, so they could influence the decisions that are made at the company. And then you can either claim it or not claim it. Again, ethical decisions to give a choice to the people. Maybe it's a good decision. Maybe it's not. I'm sure like you can already think of some ways this can backfire. But yeah, the idea is that there is no definite good or definite bad. It's not vacuum, and it's up for you, for your team, for your company, and so on to decide whether some action or decision is ethical. So to get even closer to real life situation, play with the lenses. Um, Imagine that this is like this something that happened to me. I'd like to like describe what it is, and then let's see how you would react in a situation. So imagine you get an invitation to speak at the conference, and it's some topic that you find like really meaningful, right? And like you have this message like, hey dear, how are you, we're planning this meetup and we loved whatever it is, like, you know, you put on social media or how you performed the like previous time. And okay, that's great. But then one day before the event, you find out that the main sponsor is a gambling company. Even though you still love the organizers and the topic and everything, I mean, it's a gambling company. So my question to you is, what do you do? And for that, I suggest we go to Mira. I'll open this board and there are two options. So yes, I would speak at the conference, and then a short description why. Or no, I wouldn't speak at the conference, and here is why. So let me open it and bring to you. Just 1 second. Yep. So here it is, just a couple minutes like for you to think, to write whether you would do it, whether not, and why.
Is the talk going to be about ethics?
Yeah. You don't have to quote Socrates when you say why you would speak or not speak at the conference, just your opinion. It's because I had doubts when I had this thing happening for me. I'm just curious also how would you perceive it, and yeah, I'll then say what I did and why. Yep. And I would assume, of course, some people would need more time to think. So feel free to like note it for yourself or maybe some first reaction. Okay, so with the yes, we have I would. It would be an opportunity to give the organizers and audience a different perspective. Or if it's based on the ethics baseline, would be not appropriate to cancel participation and change all the planning of organizers and the last minute point. Another is to speak to influence and challenge. Um, for sure, you're given a platform. Share my perspective, and I guess, yeah. The no answers are the not until I know more about the details. And we have the in between, which is I would definitely bring up the topic to the organizer and discuss this. Yeah, if you feel like giving like the final touch to this, you can do that. And I will anyway review it afterwards also for my personal reflection, because part of why we're talking today is for all of us to think again around the topic.
It makes
So
me think a bit on Ronaldo and his press conference. It makes me think a bit on Ronaldo and the press conference he had with the Coca-Cola bottle. Have you seen this?
no, tell me more.
Oh yeah, he was giving a press conference for the European Championship, and then he changed a bottle of Coca-Cola with a glass of water in front of all the cameras. And this was like headliner news. No, not headliner, but it was, yeah, shared a couple of times. Quite influential, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, recently I found out that I don't know if you were watching this Euro 2012 or
Yeah,
sorry, Euro Football Championship 2021,
yeah.
that the customized ads that they're using, that in different country you're watching, you're seeing different ads customized
Hmm.
to what they think you would buy. So it's also quite interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, so what I did in this situation, wait, let me see if we have one more. Yeah, what the motive behind. So what I did in this situation was that I decided to remember that there is no right or wrong, and that we're still constantly like flipping between the lenses, and to kind of like I was already in the process of learning more about ethics, and to just see that okay, I can be coming from a perspective of virtue ethicist, like I'm a good person, so I will act aligned to my understanding of what is a good person and what we are supposed to do. But also based on deontology or like Kant philosophy, like I have duties as a designer, as a person who already signed up for this conference, so I have to act according to them as well. And then the last one is the consequentialism. So I analyze like potential results, and then this is what I will do. So I ended up speaking at the conference. I was actually hosting this. It was on quantitative design, like how do you measure design? And I found this topic super important and relevant, and specifically also because we had like all female panel, so also quite powerful. And I just made sure that I raised topics on like what if you have dark patterns, and then how do you quantify them? What if measurably they bring success, but actually they damage in all the other regards? But yeah, I still felt the need that I promised. It was my mistake that I didn't check it out, so I will still speak. And I think it turned out okay. I agree with people who said about changing perspective of other people, maybe just like tilting the lens a little bit, and exposing people to more ideas. That's usually helpful. So yeah, thanks for sharing your opinion on that part. Um, and in general, like when we think about ethics, like it's for some reason we feel like okay, we need to make this fantastically big steps. But if one of those virtues, like from virtue ethics, we take responsibility, like I am a responsible person, so then care is a key component. So if we already come like I care about other human beings and I think how my actions affect other people, this is already a good position to start. Like, do not underestimate your position. Like, if you're working in tech and you're visiting this meetup, most likely you already have this. Just make sure like you appreciate this. And in terms of like shaping the moral stance, like this is a daily ethical approach already. So when you decide for yourself, this is okay for me, this is not okay for me, why I do what I do. Because I don't know if you watched, there is this movie, it was Emma Watson's called Circle, of how she worked for this big company that kind of like all world Facebook that united government and everything, and they have all the information about you. So like her situation is that she's not feeling like her family is in need, and she does not feel comfortable, and she needs to earn money, and some of the decisions she's making are based on this. So as long as you understand this, or maybe you're an expat and you're on a visa, and like your livelihood, your stay in a country depends on your work, and that's why you don't go against the flow, that's why you don't, you know, raise your voice or anything. Just know this is already the first step. This is the small steps that we are aiming at. So yeah, why you think what you think, or why you do what you do. And yeah, we build ourselves every day. And whenever someone asks you to do this, you can ask yourself already, like, what choices are compatible with the parts of my identity? Like, can I be the person who will do this? And specifically, of course, like if you're working with the population, like, you know, like kids or elderly, you know, who do not have, like their perception is a bit different, right? But also it's about everyday decisions that you're making. These are just some example questions that you can ask yourself. This is already first small steps. So to sum up, the first steps like to ethical design and integrity as a professional and human, because I don't know how it is for you, but for me, like as a human, I can do this. As a professional, I'm the same person still. So yeah, so this feeling of uneasiness, be able to detect it, it's super important, like identify it. The second one is start having conversations. So if you have some questions, start having them. If you're talking about stakeholders, slip in, oh, what about stakeholder of society? What about stakeholder of the planet? You know, like small questions. I will give examples of the questions a bit later. And the third one is that actually go through this way, through the process. Like it's not always easy, it's not always fast, and it's sometimes hard to see how to make it applicable. It doesn't always feel good, but yeah, if that's your choice of being more ethical and being more true to yourself, then that's it. So another example is a simpler one, I would say. So imagine you're in a team meeting, and it's just like a team meeting that you would normally have, you know, like once or twice a week, and you usually record them because not everybody can participate. But this time, when someone was speaking, the host didn't ask for consent and they hit record straight away. So the question is, would you say something to the host or the team about press and record, or no? And why? And for that, I'll open the other mirror board and bring you there. So average team meeting, and then someone just presses record without explicitly asking if it's okay for you, if it's not, and why. And I guess, yeah, you still have the link to the mirror, so you can start writing the post-its. And while you're writing, the weather just got crazy up here, and we have fantastic rain, which we haven't had in a week. So yeah, sometimes rain is a blessing, sometimes it's a curse. This time it's a blessing, just like with ethics. Let me see how to have less shades on my face. Yep. Okay, so we have some first answers here. And in terms of the recording, yes, I would say something. So if there is no information about recording, you would ask if meeting will be recorded, I guess. Uh-huh. It's a small effort for someone to inform and what is being done with it. It is probably, I guess. In terms of the no, I wouldn't say anything. We have the maybe it's a tech mistake or you would not, but if someone raised concern, we would support them. Or not a big deal because you recorded anyway, like everywhere. And yeah, it's kind of sad now I think about this. Yeah. I think there are the rules. Yeah, so I think this is about like first how big it is for you, how important, because ethical issues are of different scale, I'd say. And it depends like where the boundaries lay, what you consider ethical and non-ethical. And second, how you feel, if you feel like confident or shy about raising it. Like recently, I don't know, like I would have another designer said like, oh, I had an idea, and it was the same idea that I actually voiced a day earlier. So would I feel comfortable saying this? Would I not? Is it ethics? To me, it is ethics. And yeah, okay. So the last one we have about like not asking is disrespectful. Yeah. So thank you for the answers. I'll now get back to how it happened for me and what I did. So I decided to speak up. It felt super weird. I felt like, why would I even bother with this? It's such a small thing. We always record it. But then I did it anyway because I realized that little things they add up. And if I don't speak up now, then it will become normal not to ask, probably. It might become, it might not, but I don't want to risk it. And what is funny is that this happened, I think, a couple months ago. And then almost in each team meeting after that, the host explicitly asked everybody if it's okay to record. And even if Zoom like didn't show this message, this meeting is being recorded, still like they would say, hey, we are recording. Is it okay? Is everybody fine? And so on. So yeah, little things do add up. Okay, so pretty much the position is that whether you decide to say something or not to say something, at least it's important to notice your intention and like consider for yourself. There is no right or wrong, say or not say, just the whole activity that you think about this is already your ethical steps. When you say that ethics maybe is not that applicable, this is already ethics. And yeah, you can build it from smaller steps and then move onward on bigger issues, tackling whatever it is that bothers you in the world. But usually you cannot skip the small steps of thinking, considering, and observing this as well. It's the same how, for example, people learn about emotions. It's not like you are born and then immediately you can feel, oh, I'm angry, or oh, this is happiness. Like you learn what it means. And it's the same with ethical uneasiness and considerations. So talking to business and peers about ethics, that's a bit kind of like heavier topic for me. It's still work in progress. So I will share what I came up with, what I digged up, and then yeah, maybe like you have some thoughts or ideas about this as well. So the main points that I believe about this is that it's not us versus them. So we're in this together. Like everybody needs to think about business and everybody needs to think about ethics. The second kind of point is that like rule number one, start talking. Rule number two, keep talking, because as long as you keep raising it, people understand, okay, I can hear it. It's coming up again and again. So that's why it's important. And the more kind of like buzz you create in the company or around you, like the more people become aware that it's a thing. And the last one, which I sometimes face, is they say, yeah, but can you solve ethics with money? You know, can you actually say, yeah, this ethical choice brings this much benefit or return on investment? To me, like, if the conversation about money can solve ethical issues, go for it. I will be like consequentialist with this one. And yeah, but then again, your point might be different here. To go one level deeper, I want to give you a couple examples on like how conversations went for other people around ethics in the companies. So this example comes from Hypergiant Industries from Will Griffin. They have a company, like a Japanese conglomerate company as a client, which operated in the US. So what they wanted to do, it's a transportation company, and they wanted to implement some predictive maintenance. So the idea, like, use AI, gather data, analyze it, cut the staff, save the money, because we already have the data. But when this company came in as a consultant, they realized that, okay, first it's unethical because, well, there are people, cutting stuff is always so question, if automation helps fire people, is it okay or not? So they are concerned that people can laid off. It led to digging deeper, and they saw that the Japanese company had the contract in the first place because they promised to employ all of those people. So they got additional benefits because they employed minority, because they employed like diverse suppliers to help build this whole transportation infrastructure. And then it was like their leverage point. So their pitch was about policies. They came around in this policies thing. If you're based in the EU, you know that there are like more and more regulations coming up all the time. Of course, there is always GDPR that is valid for some of ethical points, not all of them. But yeah, pretty much what they did, they didn't only say, oh, it's bad to like lay off people, but also you will go against the agreements, the job programs, and so on. So when you're searching like for some arguments of why to go for some ethical decision, that could be like one of the points to explore the policies. Another one, of course, we cannot have an ethical event and not talk about dark patterns. So this is the example from Paul Bog on the pattern called sneak into basket. I don't know how familiar you're with this, but pretty much the idea is that when the user buys some bigger item, the website like automatically sneaks something smaller there. So this is example from this database of dark patterns of the Purdue University, and they just like sneak in some like Sports Direct whatever item. And Paul Bog is actually one of those whom I would recommend to follow on LinkedIn and also to check out his website. The way he explained the hidden cost of dark patterns is that because of the organizations are siloed, so each had their own area of influence, this is where the problem comes. So maybe for UX team, the conversion rate would improve because like, hey, people got bought more, right? We sneaked into baskets, so there is more money there. But for marketing, the costs increase because they understand that they're losing trust with this. People think, wait, I didn't buy it. Oh, and then the reputation falls, and then all this PR cost associated with this increase, customer acquisition cost increases. For support team as well, imagine if people are like, well, I don't need this $1 item, I want to return it. And then they call back and they spend additional, I don't know, $3 like of support team time to cancel this return. Sending back all of this like costs money, like number of returns increases, and then other departments will suffer. So whenever like this kind of dark patterns topic raises up, I'm sure it comes up a lot, especially if you work with interfaces, if you work with UX. Try to consider this holistic image of the organization and like pitch this kind of point of view of, yeah, okay, here we will win, but there are so many losses up here. Yeah, and if you're into like how to have more this like business wise decisions, ideas, and so on, you can check out Paul Bog's book called Click, and also White Hat UX by Smart Magazine publishers. So they talk explicitly about this part. Found it super useful for my practice. And the third one is from Ethical Explorer Pack. So the guys from a media network, they developed Ethical Explorer Pack, which is pretty much a set of cards. And with some questions and consideration and ethical concerns that might have, because maybe you don't even know what kind of ethical concerns might come up. And along with this pack, they also added the like description kind of guidebook that tells you how you can have the conversations with people, what kind of questions you can ask to what kind of people. So, like discussing how ethical approach can help attract talent or like relate to company values and so on. Like, for example, I had a friend who was recently moving from Estonia to the Netherlands, and she was looking for a job, and she got two job offers. One was from Shell, and another one was from like one of the banks. And Shell, have quite some reputation, even though now they're trying to like greenify their activities. Still, their value proposition for millennials in terms of reputation and everything else is not the best. So after some consideration, she ended up like going for a bank and accepting a job with them, not going for the Shell company, because she realized, well, yeah, okay, I cannot really relate to company values fully. And this is the point where they lost with some previous decisions that they made. So the question would be like, now how much future decisions can you influence with this? So yeah, also we'll provide the links and the slides worth exploring and checking this out. And also, one part of this conversation, what they say is that they highlight the doubts that people might have. So when you are like, yes, let's do ethics, and like what kind of doubts people can have to kind of contradict you. So what I would suggest, we would go to Miro, and I will now unlock the next board. And just for you to see this possible what is the doubt and what you would answer. So to add like some post-its, some ideas on how you would advocate for example, okay, ethics sounds philosophical, not actionable. It's gonna be hard to get traction internally. Like, what can you say to a person who tells you this? And if you could add like a post-it or a couple post-its maybe here, would be interesting to see like whether you have some thoughts on this. And then once we complete each of the three, I will share what these the guys from the Media Network suggest saying, and what is their kind of template of answers. So yeah, some mirror time for us to read on the questions and to add the post-its. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we have the first post-its here to the question of ethics is sounds so philosophical, not actionable. So yes, but sometimes someone has to start the discussion. Why not you and me? Why not today? And isn't it great? It will be the generation that started this discussion. Yep. And generation can be understood in a wide understanding, like our batch of people who get hired this time. Opportunity to make the planet greater. Well, there is an opportunity for us to survive on the planet. I don't know if you've read this Bill Gates book on how to avoid climate change, but so far from what I understood, we're pretty screwed if we don't start acting now. I would assume like if you're already here, you know that the action is needed. So I didn't spend much time on explaining the need for ethics, but it's good you're on the same page. Another one is we could start small by bringing up the topic and see how people relate to it. For sure, we don't even have to call it ethics. We can start asking questions without like saying, "Ah, this is ethics," and it is part of everyday life. Yeah. So if we don't have time for details, you will still have to spend on this. You can choose to spend on this now or after it causes problems, definitely, and later it can cost much more. And the one last poster that I see here is that maybe we can start within like immediate community, like yourself, myself, and people around. And yeah, understand what the needs, the pain points, and understand, yeah, what you feel uncomfortable in real life. Super interesting. Thank you for answering. And then we have the we need to move fast, or now isn't the time to slow down. I also sometimes hear that, yeah, but our like workshop is so packed already, so I don't know how to squeeze it in. So would be curious. Let me physically bring you here to this board. Um, but yeah, of course, feel free to come back. If you are lost, we're just like moving to the right of the mirror board, and feel free to add to the previous posted as well, or add to the new ones. Yeah, we also need better results, right? That's an interesting one. And every next day of your life will be harder than today. Today is the best day to start this. Yeah, I usually think about this, the years will come by anyway, like they will pass. Like, what if you already start making the change? It's pretty much about everything. And it's never right time for anything. That's right. That's, I believe, what they say about family planning as well. There is like never right time to start a family. Narrowing down the scope, yep, as well, that we don't have to solve everything at the same time. And okay, that ethics is a conversation, and yeah, we can build the communication which will result in building empathy. Oh, that's a beautiful one. It's good to have this holistic image of how your small step then ends up in something bigger and adds up. Thanks for the answers here. And the last one is this: taking responsibility for this sounds like a full-time job. So it's the one on the right. Um, and to this, we have the most real jobs are bullshit anyway. I would assume that's what was the posted. I even had a conversation with a manager from Heineken who told me, yeah, actually, my position can be easily dismissed. They don't really need me here. But I kind of like the comfort of going to job, like seeing my colleagues and performing on my duties. And I will never tell them that they can just fire me and give my responsibilities to other people. Yeah, I think it's really kind of opened up my perspective of how people can see their work, which is quite different from how I see what I do, but it's interesting. So we have more post-its coming in. So it's always difficult at the beginning, but setting the baseline would be like drinking water in the future. Yeah, that's interesting, and I think it's also part of what Leonard mentioned in the past meetup within this group, is that you decide what is normal, and if you just okay, we are about wellness, we are about like fairness, we are about sustainability, then that's it. That's what we are. And living the responsibility now cannot be solved later. Um, definitely not. Definitely not full-time job. Yeah, like we can sneak in here and there some things, I guess. And then we have the another one which is in the writing. But surprisingly, there are actually full-time jobs related to ethics. There are full-time jobs about like chief ethics officer or department of ethics and so on, and not only in companies like that are related to, I don't know, medicine or something like this, but there are actually positions and they're developing like job descriptions and so on. Maybe if you're familiar with initiative Tech is Human, I will link it up when I'll be sending the follow-up for this meetup. They have the Slack group, and they actually have this whole channel that is dedicated to the links for job descriptions around the ethical design jobs, ethical tech jobs, and so on. And yes, you can watch the recording on the YouTube page. You can reach out to Leonard. Like, he's a fantastic human being. We had great conversations with him. So yeah, that's also always an option. Great. So we have the last post-it, the problem with the issues for immigrants, miscommunication, high context, low context. Yes, sure. I mean, also it's funny. Sometimes, like, I moved now to Sweden some weeks ago, and it's very different from the previous culture. Even though I lived in Estonia for 2 years, still I can feel the difference. And of course, your company culture is impacting this as well. So let's go and see what Ethical Explorer Pack had to say to this. So their answer to ethics sounds so philosophical and not actionable was that, okay, that's why I need your help. And when it comes to this type of work, it's about starting small, building habits, and that there is not like one simple solution. And that we can invest now to empower teams like to prepare for what's next. And one of the suggestions that they have is to give an example of GDPR, of how it came suddenly and everybody need to deal with it. So instead of like dealing with some things that happen, you can already start creating internal conversations, internal situations in which you know how to act with ethical issues. With the we need to move fast and it's not the time to slow down, the way they suggest it's not any different than trade-offs we made with like technical debt, and that it's the same, like, okay, shortcuts now may work but they will catch up, and that if we take proactive approach we will not waste more time and resources. So it's about this proactive approach towards this. And the last one is the sounds like a full-time job responsibility, is that it shouldn't be like one person who takes care of this, and there should be shared responsibility. So pretty much the idea is that you should have some kind of initiative groups. So one of the like some of the posters we actually had around this can be immediate circle, and then yeah, you can act on the issues, you can maybe protest some uses of the technology that they build and so on, because technology impacts us every day, even if we don't understand this or see it at first. So, bonus tip from me personally, what I love doing is to keep the boost folder. So, what is a boost folder? When we talk about ethics or read or any books, any materials, there is a lot of negative sentiment, a lot like how I started, I mentioned a couple examples. It's about, so these businesses are manipulating and so on. But when you're asked to name some positive example, it's really hard. It's like, give me an example of someone who acted ethically in the past week, like, and you were like, uh, yeah. So it's easier to identify like a bad point. So what I started doing, I started keeping the boost folder, and I have it for two kind of types of input. So the lower one, you can see from Andri. This is the CEO of the company I used to work for. This is my personal win. It was like when I was advocating for like, let's talk about customer journey. Let's do it. Let's not do like quick wins and not talk ROI. And then after some months of me like advocating for this and for like customer journey, for user experience, and focusing specifically on some stages, he ended up like, okay, this task not a priority, let's prioritize customer journey. So this was my small win. For me it is an ethical win, because every time you put human in the center, it is ethical already. And it also helped us to see a larger image of what we are doing as a company. And the example on the right is the example from Memrise. To me, it's ethical because they read a really nice, heartfelt text that explains more about what they will do with your money once you're subscribed. So they said, like, okay, it's the boring bit, but it's about your cash. So keep reading. And then at the end, they have this, okay, they had the explanation, how it works. And then you made it to the end, like, congratulazioni, which is, I find it super nice. To me, it's ethical. To me, it's fun as well. So yeah, like this is the folder if you need some inspiration. Sometimes it's not only about your own industry but also somewhere outside, so just keep this folder with kind of cheer me up examples. Yeah, so as for the next steps, like my next steps and probably your next steps, so I recently changed jobs, so it's a different environment, and I outlined like some things that I want to do for myself. Some of them I started doing with more or less successful outcomes. But like first, I keep educating myself, like what questions I can ask. So some of the sources are this like Kid Joe with monitoring checklists, tarot cards. At first, it seems like, oh, it's something out of this world. How do I apply this? But then you actually learn how to tweak the questions that they pose. You just like, there are the links you'll have, you can take a screenshot, or you can like check it out later when we send the materials. Or the same ethical explorer pack, like which I shared also, like see the questions, see how they can be applicable to your projects, to your company. It all starts with questions, it all starts with thinking, even asking questions to yourself. Okay, I'm developing this app. What will happen if 80% of the population is using this app? Or what if I'm designing for adults, but 4-year-old kid like will take this app and use it? Sorry. And then another one, like based on this, I decided, okay, so we have this like 2 project meetings a week. So I'll make sure that I ask at least one question out of these in a meeting. And also to have this regular self-reflections of what I did. So kind of like retro sessions with myself of how it ties up with like ethical considerations. The next one is like focus on the beginnings and on reflections. So when you have the project lifecycle, the kickoff phase and the reflection phase are like super important. So what I try to do is like try to make sure I know the KPIs for the project. And if in those KPIs there is nothing ethical, try to squeeze it in. And also have this definition of done, like the project is done when, like what we need to understand about it. Also, actually, this is what I realized after some internal reflection, that I need to have a personal development goal for the project, because this is ethics towards me personally as a designer and as a human being. If I don't have it, if I only do like company goals, doesn't inspire me that much, and I don't feel I'm like sustainable towards myself. And also what I do is like I write a letter to my future self on how I want this project to go, and then at the end I review this letter and I see like what's up, just to be sure that like KPIs didn't go against my moral stance, nothing changed, and so on. So yeah, in the regular reflections, I don't only check this letter, I also, there is this normative design canvas, again, like it's linked here, to see like, okay, can I fill it in? What was virtue ethics about it? What was the ontology? Did they care about consequences of my actions? So it's just like, it's more of a boring theoretical thing to do. But to me, this is already an action step that helps me develop my thinking and develop my arguments. What I do for myself, I also check how my cycle, like how my like period went that month, like when I was active, when I was not, maybe my hormones impacted my performance. Again, that's like what I find ethical to myself and like true to myself. And also check what was my role in the project. So could I be more proactive? Was I the one who advocated for ethics, or I was like pretty much taking it as it goes? So what I suggest we do, we go back to Miro, and if you like some of the ideas, I will now unblock the pre-last part, and you can put like some reaction or smiley on one of the post-its that you like, or maybe you can add on something based on what you heard today, or more, maybe you are already doing something, like some really small steps that you can add as ideas for other people. Yeah, so up to you, either vote or read, or I don't know, take screenshots for yourself, whatever works. Even you being here and thinking about this, it's already a step forward. So just for you to appreciate this and remember this. And yeah, we'll take a couple minutes here before wrapping up and coming back to the last part. Great. I have some smileys here, some likes here and there. That's great. We have a new post-it. Mindfulness, yes, that's something I really need to go back to. Oh, I loved it. It's great. I didn't know Mira does this. Yeah. So yeah, this will be with you. We will share also the Miro board. Will share like all the information here, all the links. And while you're still here in the Miro board, just a final kind of exercise slash checkout. If you could answer the same question that you answered in the beginning, like how do you feel about ethical design? If anything changed, or if nothing changed, or if you had even more questions, or if you were like, not really worth it. Just to capture a couple of sentiments about how you feel if any new information or any suspicions that you had finally, you understood, okay, there is someone who thinks like me. And yeah, so just couple last thoughts on what are your post interactive workshop thinking. I think like for me, it's also interesting to go through this because it's the first time I do it as a part, do this workshop as a part of larger organization. And it's also interesting to, thank you for inspiring workshops. Thank you for the comment. It's also interesting for me to go through this now as an employee of a different type of organization. And what I notice is that what we do now, for example, we sneak in smaller questions into interview guides, or even for ourselves as a design team, we kind of, okay, yes, this topic is important for us. We decided on this. How can we walk towards this? But even like having it in front of us every other day or every project meeting, that's super interesting, and to see how this unfolds. So some of the sentiments that you're capturing here is that it's not philosophical as people think, and more optimistic. There's hope. There's definitely hope. Even though sometimes I feel like, oh, I want to hide under the blanket and never do this again. And it's like so much work. There is so much work, and that's the beauty of it. And surprisingly, when you start digging into it, you see more people who are interested in this topic. I mean, like, come on, UXify and Haman has 3 events dedicated to like ethics and UX. That's crazy. That's achievement already. And actually, this World Usability Day, which will be in autumn, their main topic is ethics, which is also quite interesting as to me. So other posts is so much happy that we are discussing these topics, more confident and motivated about raising ethical topics, and realize I'm already applying ethical design. That's fantastic. Yes, even understanding, okay, this is the thing that I do that is ethical. That's great. And yes, growing towards to be more conscious tech, the sentiment that we checked it out. It's important to us and people. And yeah, we're defining ethics in design in our everyday move. And it is time to, it's always time to, for sure. Um, yeah, there is no tomorrow. There is no tomorrow. Start small. That's great. That's we captured in the name. Happy that we had this as a final sentiment as well. And it's sophisticated philosophical term that should always stay with the context and in stories. Yeah. So the same with our stories. Like we didn't have, for example, we were discussing the specific situations, right? We didn't have, okay, I will do this, and this is the only reason why, or I will do that, or I will not do this, and only for this reason. People are different. And also, maybe your moral stance is changing with time. What you believe now, not necessarily you will believe this in, I don't know, 1 year, half a year or so. Um, yeah, thank you for sharing this. And yes, the next step for this for me would be to compose this document with the links and suggestions for you so that you can check it out. You can see more questions, and you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's the easiest way, like Nata Kostenko.
Mhm.
I can see that there is a comment in the chat about slowly wrapping up. What I would suggest, maybe we can say thank you everybody on the recording, and maybe I can stop sharing my screen with that, since we are done with the main part. And maybe we can just talk about if anybody has any questions, like off records, on anything ethics related, because it's usually easier to talk without the red thingy blimping.
Thanks, Nata. That seems a really nice idea.
Let me start with applying what I learned. Would we prefer to keep the recording on or off?
I would keep the recording on.
Cool.
And also with the recording, to me, there is always this thin line. If you ask something and people do not explicitly agree, doesn't mean that they disagree. And the other way, if they don't disagree, doesn't mean they agree. We had this, like, I had an employee who was like peer who was grasping the sentiment. He was recording and transcribing at the same time. And he asked in the chat, but not everybody saw the chat. And then they were like, ooh. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much too. It's very lovely of you to attend.
I'll stop the recording, and we can maybe just leave with a note that for the viewers, thanks for watching it in your own time, and to be able to participate in this explicit Q&As, you should make sure that you join our events.
Thank you, Nata. I really enjoyed